Hello everybody, I'm the veteran noob, and this means that I'm pretty decent at not being incredible. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Tier 10 German, very light tank destroyer, the Grill 15. So, a few things you should know about this tank right off the bat is that it's been nerfed since its introduction to the game. It's also the tank that was put into the game to replace the Waffentrager Panzer E100, which was arguably the most overpowered tank ever added in at Tier 10, up until they added in the Chieftain and the Object 2790. If you pick up this tank, something you'll notice really quickly is that its pen is not good for a Tier 10 tank destroyer. Really, the only decent stat this tank has is its camo rating, and even that's not great because of its rather large size. The tank's alpha damage is kind of poor at 750. It's not the worst tier 10 alpha damage, but its DPM isn't great either. And this means that unlike some tier 10 tank destroyers like the Sturv 103B, which don't have great damage per shot, but do have incredible DPM, you really don't feel like you're hitting your opponent too hard. The view range on this tank is also pretty nice. It's not going to, outdo any light tanks, but it can do in a pinch. If you put on binoculars, you can actually push the view range up really high. I personally only use things that increase its accuracy and its aim time, and that's because I'm trying to take advantage of the relatively good accuracy of the gun. And even with the great accuracy, you're gonna miss more shots than you would think. And because of the low pen, your shots will bounce off tanks, even when you're aiming for their weak points, just because the shell went a little bit too much to the side. Here's quite an interesting part in the clip. I fully aimed that shot in, basically. I don't know where it went, but it just missed the Backjet 25T AP, that's not a Backjet 25T. And then on the move, I'm gonna pull another shot because I know he's about to go into his reload. That was his 6th shell landing on me, and I figure if I hit it, great. If not, I should be able to catch him or at least get safe before he manages to reload. Now right here, it doesn't look like he's running away. I mean, it did look like he's running away, but it looks like he stopped, and then at first I wasn't sure what was going on, but if you pay attention right here, you see that Bulldog has got himself stuck, and is actually not a threat, and is just wedged in there, so I'm going to take advantage of that, put 2 shells in. The first shell low rolls ridiculously low, at only like 620 damage or something like that, but it would average taking me 2 shells, 680, better than I thought it was originally. But it's going to take me 2 shells on average to kill the tank anyway, so it's not a big deal. Generally speaking, you can't be too aggressive with this tank destroyer. Its armor is really weak. It's open-topped, and it can be penned by basically anything. This special camo I have makes it look like it has some spaced armor on the sides and whatnot, but it doesn't actually have that spaced armor. So watch out for that when you're trying to engage your enemies in any kind of scenario. Another thing is that the terrain resistances and power to weight ratio of the tank don't feel too good, so you don't feel like you're getting anywhere quickly, though it does have a pretty decent top speed of somewhere around 45 to 50 miles per hour or meters. I don't remember what they use in this game. That mobility will allow you to get around and on top of your opponents or on the side of your opponents in some specific scenarios. It's not great though, because without a full rotating turret or great armor, you can get yourself caught out more often than not. Another thing is that this tank's stats are just so poor that if you don't have a decent crew in this tank, you're going to feel really left out and really lacking. I tried to get some decent footage without a great crew in the tank, but I just couldn't do it. Normally for my reviews, I like to play the tank without a good crew and get some footage of the tank performing at least average like that, but this tank really just doesn't and hasn't for me. Back when I first got this tank, which I think it was my first tier 10, I truly despised the tank because I had no idea how to use the tank or what to do with the tank, and I arguably still don't. But it has been a lot more fun since I realized that I can try and abuse the accuracy, and since the crew in it got up to speed. Another thing to be wary of is that when you try to brawl with other tank destroyers with this tank, well, you might have the accuracy to hit them in their weak points and pen the hard-to-pen tanks. I mean, not the trash barn over there, that's easy to pen from everywhere. That a V4 005. But some of the heavily armored tank destroyers, while they're easy, you can hit their weak points and you will pen them. They can hit back generally with a higher alpha, and they don't need to aim nearly as much because they will pen you basically everywhere. In terms of overall how noob-friendly this tank is, I would say not at all. If you're a noob looking for a tier 10 tank destroyer to maybe mess about with and have a good time in, this one's not the one for you. Specifically because without the good crew, it's really lackluster, and also because you get punished really, really hard when using this tank if you don't play it extremely well. If Artie, tier 8 Artie can rip off basically all your hit points if they get a shot into you, and don't even get me started on tier 10 Artie, most tanks will just load HE and do ridiculous amounts of damage to you. You can be penned from everywhere easily, it's not even a question, and this means you're going to get out-traded and out-dueled in almost every scenario you get yourself in. Another thing is that since it has basically no gun depression and it doesn't have a fully rotatable turret, getting caught out in this tank is incredibly easy and really difficult to recover from, so again, not something I recommend for somebody new to the game, just getting into it. If you're a veteran of the game, though, with good crews and good skills and maybe even some bond equipment, this might be a tank worth picking up because it does have great accuracy, good aim time, and a decent camo, and if you know how to use that to your advantage, you could probably have a lot of fun with it. I mean, I know it became at least a little bit more fun when I started doing those things, but overall I just can't recommend this tank to somebody who's trying to get into the game. Now, I guess that's not the tank's fault, that's more Serb's fault. When it was originally going to go into the game, it had a much better alpha damage and some other better stats, but then shortly after it was introduced to the game, it did get nerfed, and that kind of put the nail in the coffin for this whole tech tree, especially when you consider that the tank before it, that it replaced, was arguably the best tier 10 tank ever added in the game. Now, this replay is basically what was happening to a much larger extent when I didn't have a great crew and whatnot in the game. In the tank, I mean. Anytime my team would start getting overrun, this tank just could do nothing to stop it. Here I'm top tier, and normally in a tier 10 game, if you're top tier, you can really change the tides and make a big difference. But there's just nothing much for me to do. I can't get into a place where I'll be brawling with heavy tanks, and I really don't want to get shot at by any of their big, meaty alpha damage guns, so I gotta hide here. The other team just doesn't give me shots. I get the first kill of my team, though. I get a nice shot on this LT-432, but overall, it just feels very difficult to make a true difference to your team in this tank, especially when you don't have the perks and the map and all that going on for you. One good thing about this tank, of course, is that if you see one on the opponent's team, you're going to have a really, nice time, I guess, and some free damage arguably going on there. I will point out another really interesting thing is that most other tier 10 tank destroyers in multiple ways are just considerably better than this tank. This could be considered, and is in my opinion, the worst tier 10 tank destroyer. Now, the Trash Barn has a lot of stats that might make it seem like it's really bad, and the Death Star also, but at least those tanks you can really have fun with, and you can really do something, and even if you can't carry a game in a Death Star, hitting somebody for 1800 damage, or even only 1000 damage if you're using AP for some reason, is truly satisfying and at least a lot of fun. When you're in this tank, you don't even get that. Here's some of that shell velocity EIS-7 going across the open there, and the shell almost missed even though I aimed at the front of it. A great thing you could do in this tank, though, is if you get into the right secret, not secret, the right hiding spots, you can easily pull a shot and then pull back because it's got a decent retreat speed, reverse speed, and decent speed overall, so you can actually pull back and get away from your opponents and then run somewhere else and maybe get another shot off. Now, this is what I'm talking about with the pen just not holding up, is I'm going to get a shot into the back of the Centurion who just doesn't notice me, and maybe it was the accuracy, it went into his track there, maybe it was just not enough pen, but the shell doesn't go through the back of a Centurion, and that tells you a lot. So as I said, not really something I would recommend for a noob, but other than that, have a great day, and